Giving our praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Charakah, Kodash. Double honors to all the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone. Salutes, shouts to all the sincere elect out there. We almost out of this bitch, keep fighting. So, the good book, right? The good book, that's what the Bible is called. So, I just asked that question, and as a matter of fact, land back in something that was said by the elders in their last live stream. It is a good book. It's described as a good book, but it's not the good book for everybody. So when you tap in the good book and then you go to images, the Bible comes up. All right. I want to ask another question here. Get into some of this. Why is the Bible called the good book? This is what Google says. The Bible is the good book because it has an humanitarian effect on mankind that has taught us to love, reach out, to seek the good of others before ourselves, right? And give us the scriptures there. Not everybody don't appreciate that. And when you get into some of them scriptures that he's got there, it's Yahushai. Christians call him Jesus. His writings in the red letters. And do many people pick it up? They may pick it up. The Christians pick it up. They have it. They open it from time to time. They put it on their shelves. But they don't appreciate it. They don't put it into practice. And as we know, there's only certain people it's for. And there's certain people it's not for. Let's get into the scriptures. Right? This was brought out. We're going to get into some of the words as we do. All right. So Ezekiel chapters 2 and 10 says, let's read 9. It says, and when I looked, behold, an hand was sent unto me, and lo, a roll of the book was written, was therein. Right, the books were in scrolls in them days. Right, papyrus. There's a certain material that the books, the Bibles was written in, but basically they were in scrolls, not as we have them today, in the paper form and in the book form. You could just flip over the pages and get straight to what you want. But this is what the prophets, in this case, is the prophet Ezekiel, giving his explanation of what he experienced, right? And he spread it before me in his vision, and it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations and mourning and woe, right? So as was said by the elder Apostle Gabar, right? He's not good. He's not the good book, but it's the good book. But it's not the good book for you heathens. That's the title of this video. It's not the good book as far as certain 2/3 heathens, the wicked, the Edomites, right? So it's not the good book for Uno. Well, let's get into some of the words. I want to. A lot of them we done know already, but what was written therein? What was written in the book? And there was written therein. Here's a word here. Let's get into that. Lamentations. So that's H70:15. Lamentations. Beating the breast or instructions. Lamenting. Right? We know that means to be wailing or crying. That's the meaning. As a matter of fact, let me see what I want to see. The meaning of lamentations. What Google says. Lamentations meaning. Right? Expression, a passionate expression of grief, regret, or disappointment. Right? And we know already. Let's see the etymology. From the old French, cry, directly from Latin. They have it wailing, mourning, weeping. Yeah, and that does comes to my mind is the Wailing Souls, Bob Marley, right? He's known for being what they call it, a folk singer, reggae songs. They call them folk songs, and he was what they call crossover. He appealed to so-called black people and white people of all different nations. A lot of people embraced Bob Marley, and then you had the Wailing Souls, Bunny Wailer, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh. There was a group that was formed together in the 70s. They call them Bob Marley and the Wailing Souls, and they were Benjamites. And Benjamin is known for, he says that the scripture in Genesis 49 says that he will wail, he will raven as a wolf, right? Raven as a wolf, which is another form of wailing, crying, lamenting. So the prophet Lamentation, in the book of Lamentation, the prophet, he was known for his crying, wailing, and that's what prophets do. They cry out, and the word prophet means to say before or cry out before, giving warning. So it is a good book, but the book we opened up with, why is it the good book? It's a good book for those who take heed to the instructions that are in it, the prophets, and ultimately the elect of the so-called black people, right, which are chosen, bought from the beginning, from the foundation of the earth. It is a good book, but it was given to only us, right? Hence the word we're looking at right now, lamenting. Right? Let's see if we get anything else out here.
Strong's H 7015. Kina.
Yep. Accompanied by beating, so a dirge, another form of wailing, crying, beating the breast, and that's what they used to do when they was in they used to put on sackcloths, the prophets, when they was wailing, and go down on the floor and put the dust over their head and go into it, right? Lamenting, crying. In some cases, asking for mercy for themselves or asking for mercy for their people. Something that King David did, something that Jonah did. For the most part, a lot of prophets did that, wailing, lamenting. So that's one word we looked at there, to lament. And this is what is the good book, by the way. This is what's in the good book for those that didn't know. We didn't learn about that or get into it in the scriptures. We may have brushed over when we read, we may have brushed over certain words and meanings of words and certain chapters, verses, we've just brushed over them, not getting into them the way we are doing now via our teachers. The scripture said that we shall see our teachers. So morning, right, which we know that's very similar. HAE 99. Rumbling, growling, morning. Right, enough said here. Right? Bob Marley and the Wailing Souls. They were wailing, man. Ravenous wolves. Raveling. Ravenous wolves, man. Raving. As a matter of fact, I want to come back to this there and see something here. Wailing meaning. Making a prolonged high-pitched cry, sound, out of pain, grief. Yep. Bob Marley and the Wailing Souls. They were ravening. They were raving as a wolves. Right? Raving as a wolf. The scripture says that that's what Benjamin would do. Howling, making a prolonged high-pitched cry or sound out of pain, grief. And also you had Little Richie back in the days of blues, right? In the days of the blues, it was making that sound there. Is another form of crying in pain, sound of pain, grief, right? Refers to a person's cry like a mourner at a funeral, enough said. So, right, that's another thing that just come to my mind. Rumbling, growling, mourning, sigh, right? The days of blues in the 50s and the 60s, the 40s, when we were on the cotton field, we'd be singing. That's how that was invented, by the way, and it formed out And rock and roll also formed out of the blues, not by the so-called white people. It formed from the so-called black people, who were in that state of pain, right? Mourning, right? The blues music. So they were wailing, right? Making the point here. This is in the scriptures, and that's why prophets knew what to do when they needed to. They were doing that, right? Many a prophet we could speak about. Ezekiel I mentioned, even David too, when he went off with fornicating with Bathsheba, when he was punished for it, and the Most High said, "I'm going to deal with your wife was pregnant, Bathsheba was pregnant, and she's going to be punished by." He dealt the child a blow, and David didn't want it to happen, but he was so upset he went down and he mourned it, hoping that the Most High would have mercy on him. But the Most High did deal with the child a blow because of how the child came about, because he fornicated, or he was an adulterous relationship that he had with Bathsheba, and we know how it ended up. He paid for it, but it was forgiven. Most High didn't delete his life, but yet sorrow fell on his family, sins fell on his family, trouble was in his household, but he was another one who mourned, right? Put on sackcloth and mourned from dusk till dawn, asking for mercy. So some of the things that are in the scriptures are the whole heap of mourning and wailing in the scriptures, crying, right? Saying before, right? A lot of people got deleted in the time of the deluge, the time of Noah. Only 8 people were preserved in that time of the sinful time, the sin that was on the earth. So there's a whole heap of deletions in the Bible too, man, right? And in that time, after that happened, the name Al-Shajja, demon-like power, they feared, right? And when prophets came to town, they also mourned and they feared. They were aware of was it going to be a good thing, message, or a bad message. There was a whole heap of lamentation in the scriptures, man. I made the point already anyway. Just getting one more, right? Woe, we know what that is. H19, H5092. And there we go, there again, right? Wailing, right? Woe. We know woe means destruction. It's just all the same, similar words, different ways to pronunciation, but the same kind of meaning behind them. Here you have it, and we know already. So, woe means destruction, right? Another word for wailing. That's the point. That's the point. So, and the woe, the ultimate woe, is when the intercontinental ballistic missiles come upon you, wicked, right? And the scripture, as a matter of fact, I'm going to read it here for those that maybe have forgotten the judgments that's going to come about, because this is ultimately the reason why there's going to be a whole heap of wailing. There's going to be a massive cry, right? For the 2/3 when they go, right? I mean, they're going to be crying in that heat, that intense heat, fire, and it's going to be woe, ultimate woe. So I've looked into the book once again. I've picked it up, the book Bible, right? Combat Bible Dictionary. Yeah, the Zondervan Combat Bible Dictionary. And these are the ultimate people. This is not the good book for you, right? And when you was writing this, your own researchers and Bible scholars put it together. You didn't know. This is a good point as well. You didn't know you was talking about yourselves, right? Going to Edom, the Edomites, 142. You didn't know when you was writing it out, putting the scriptures together, bringing out all the different facts and dates and receipts, that you was ultimately talking about your own future judgment, your own selves, right? So let's get down to the certain paragraph I'm looking for under Edom. It says, Edom figures prominently in the prophetic scriptures as the scene of great future judgments. She is the only neighbor of the Israelites who was not given any promise of mercy from God. There you have it, Akim. Right? That's why it's not the good book for you. Right? That's why it's not the good book for you. Right? And when I get into that scripture as well, I'm going to get the scripture to back it up. The scripture is Malachi 1. Let's get that one. Malachi 1 and 4 says, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will rebuild. We will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord have indignation forever. So these are the facts that are in the Bible, the Combat Bible Dictionary, Vondervan Combat Bible Dictionary. A lot of this, there's a whole heap of scriptures you can get at, right, just in case, right, or you need reminders, right. This is the judgment for you is, and it's the good book for the elect, right. It's the good book for the elect. Yeah, well, there we go. The good book for the elect, because it prophesies salvation, right, for the elect, and that's true. That is true. What we looked up, we can agree with that. Why is the Bible the good book? Because it has a humanitarian effect, right? They put that word in there, but it's much deeper than that. It's a spiritual, and it's giving us his chosen elect, right? Eklektos in the Greek, chosen people, salvation, right? There you have it, right? Much deeper than that. They put that. That's the surface, right? But and there's another precept I'm going to read as well, just to make the point. Something that was said, right? There's a whole heap of prophecies in the book too, right? And the prophecies are not looking good for you, wicked of our own people. And once again, there is no mercy for you, Edomites, right? As you was putting that book together, you didn't know you was writing about your own future judgments, and you told so-called black people, you forbid them from reading. If they would have been found reading in the times of slavery, the Jim Crow, right? They would have had faced some serious consequences. But you didn't know, which the Most High made it possible for us to get hold, right, of the books, right? And ultimately, the Urim and the Thummim, the Daniel chapters 12, knowledge will increase. So we're in that time now, right? So we know the future judgment for you, and we know that we have a future salvation via prophecies. Another reason why this is the good book that we have too. Let's get 2 Timothy 3 and 14 says, but continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, right? Timothy's mentor, Apostle Paul, was instructed to continue in the good book, that from a child thou hast known the holy scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith which is in a Mashiach, Yahushua Mashiach, right? The good book. All scriptures is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that a man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. Hence we're getting into the reason why it's called a good book, for the people who embrace the good book, who it was given for, right? The elect, the chosen of the so-called black people, which are the Israelites as we know them, right? Princes of the power. So it is the good book, but it's only the good book to certain people. And Lord willing, throughout the week we're going to get into the reasons why it ain't. We touched on it a little bit today in the Bible dictionary. We touched on it a little bit today, but there's more reasons why it's not the good book for the wicked. We're going to touch a little bit more on that, Lord willing, in future videos. The Wadi Al Bashima Shai. We on to the next.